This is Mr.
Martello.
Martello. He's our resident photographer now. Right there, ladies. Man, good, grab a stool. Here, slide over. Let somebody get next to you.
I'm from Meadville.
There you go.
So
So you know the area.
I know the area pretty well.
Okay, cool. So everybody has to ask one question. Who wants to go first? Oh boy, it's gonna be a long time. We're gonna go down here.
I have a question about the ending scene. How do you keep your voice from not, like, how do you not hurt yourself from just screaming that much?
My voice hurts just listening to you.
How do you do that?
It's just like a lot of practice. I try to talk in such a way that I don't damage anything in my throat.
Okay.
Wally?
What? You don't want to scream all the time.
Just scream a little bit.
Yeah, voice is that's
Okay, who's next? Go ahead.
So this is clearly a very racially charged show and a very emotional. I know. We did a show that was not nearly as intense 2 years ago, and by the end of week one, our entire cast was trained. We brought in puppies and kittens, and it was a rough time. How do you guys keep that intensity, performance after performance?
whiskey.
That's how I do it.
Tennessee whiskey, hey.
Yeah.
What was the show that you all did?
We did Trojan Women about 2 years
Girl
ago.
Mom was also really draining. So it was the
Yeah.
first half.
And when we did Trojan Women, it was a modern adaptation, so our director had us reading interviews from genocide survivors. And by end of tech week, even before we opened, it was rough enough as is. I couldn't imagine doing a show this visceral again. and
We're
again
black
and again.
people, we're genocide survivors.
Yes.
We literally have deep resilience as a matter of soul. You carry 500 years worth of DNA in your body right now. We're carrying a living memory of deep, livid resilience inside of us. And theater is, and for August, theater was medicine. Theater is an act of healing. Theater in and of itself, the gathering of bodies in the room and the breath in and of itself is a mountain of energy that we can pull from. Like, we're not pulling from an empty well. You know, like Jonathan runs deep, Wally runs deep, and the act of doing the show is replenishing. So we're not functioning from a place of lack at all, ever, right? And when you work with this kind of medicine, this kind of art, then you can work with it intentionally, right? So you can go into a show, you can decide what you want to come from this act. You can decide to apply the medicine as specifically as a doctor and a pharmacist can apply medicine. That's what's happening here. We're working within this cast and this company, this body of people, within the living work of August Wilson from a place that is generative. So all of this generates more. And so there is no lack. There is never any emptiness.
You mentioned that August Wilson's plays are a type of medicine. Do you find doing this play and playing these roles and doing the other, for I guess those of you who have done the other plays in the cycle, do you find it to be therapeutic? I can't think of the word, but like cathartic. Yeah, that's the word I was thinking of. But do you
Most
find it?
definitely is. He's done all 10. 11. Sorry.
10 plus the one-man show.
Right, yeah. He's the only man in the world that has done all 10, plus I learned what I've learned. So we're sitting next to history.
Here's the dollar, Johnny.
Well, you're cheap.
I want to speak to this question. So I find sometimes, especially with white audiences, as Black people, was that therapeutic? Was that catharsis? It is as though it's coming from a place of pathology, as though there is as though sickness is primary or something like that. We're artists, right? So creating is a life. It doesn't start and stop just on the stage. Like, we are artists. We live and move and breathe the same way that August is. When August was on the Hill, he was always writing down what people said. Like, I'm going to the stove bus. He was always, it's a very active part of the soul, the being, the dimensional human. And so while can be, like I said earlier, you can set your being intentionally to the task, right? So you can have a very specific kind of catharsis if that's what you need, if you choose to do that. I find that I find that we can talk about the work as medicine, but we have to not necessarily make it as, for me, I find to talk about the medicine for all humans, and not because like, oh, you're Black people up in that show, is that hard? Do y'all need that medicine? Is it catharsis? Do you go to Jesus? Just all of that. But we live in a world where it's very difficult to function as humans. So was it cathartic for you? What was it like for you to sit there and to watch what happened to them?
I think that it was, I think the ending scene was again traumatic, but I think the rest of it had some, it was, I guess, reaffirming to hear the stuff that was said on stage, because it's stuff that I try to be very,
Is it present to?
what?
Is it present to? You just try to be present to it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I try to be present and socially aware of stuff, and so it was very reaffirming, I guess is a word that could describe it. The last scene was traumatic, but I just hate death scenes in any type of word. I know they're necessary.
You got to you in the century cycle, so
yeah, I'm aware that it's necessary, but it's still difficult. It's still difficult to watch.
I need a partner.
Were you surprised by that, or you kind of felt it coming?
I felt the tension coming. I honestly thought there was going to be a murder earlier on. When the first time he pulled out the knife, I thought he was going to kill someone. So I mean, I wasn't 100% surprised by it. Just like when, I guess, is the.
Did you understand his journey through life?
I think so.
I think August laid it out for him that, he says at one point, bad luck. What's the line, JB? Bad luck. My whole life's been, is that what it was?
Mm-hmm. Hey, bad.
Oh, you don't want to see the lines no more?
I would like to say something to you about that. As a student and an observer of what you were able to see, I want to ask you, where do you think Levy's tipping point came in? Because you're not the first person that said, out of the whole 2 hours and 45 minutes, that was the most influential, or it was the piece that stuck out the most to you. But like you said, when August wrote it, there were pieces along the way that led to that. And when we're talking about Levy pouring his heart into this music and he gets pushed away, he ends up killing a Black man after being told he's only going to get $5 for a song he can't create. And the death occurred after that tipping point. So as intense as it felt, it was that much more intense for him to have something that he created and that he invested in be looked at as so small, and something that he invested in the very beginning, which was his shoes. So he almost gave him a pair of shoes for a song because they were $4, and to offer him $5 for a song that he was just tore down through mob, was saying, I don't want to hear your music. So it was a principle of being built on a negative energy over and over and over and over again. And so when you kind of see that, a lot of times when you see it at the end point, it's not always that. It's the things that happen kind of before that, you know, and it makes that what it is, so.
I almost thought the tipping point was about the time where he was, talking about not being spooked by white men and stormed off and then came back and just started ranting about his childhood. I thought that was kind of the same way, like that was like this close to breaking.
I think that was his attempt to let these gentlemen know his journey. Because they kept making fun because he's a flashy guy. And they might have felt a certain way that, you know, I'm older, you know, I'm not gonna be a star like Mom, but here's a kid who has potential. You know what I mean? And there might be some animosity, you know what I mean? But I felt that he wanted to be around these men. He grew up without a father at a certain age, you know, he left. Boy, I'm going to the fences now. But
Well, his father died.
He did. I know. I went into his dad.
He was 8 years old when his dad died.
I know. I switched over to the fences. It happened.
10-play cycle.
Yeah, that's all true.
But he grew up. He basically grew up from 8 years old. But my son is. I got a 7-year-old and 10-year-old, and I can only imagine. You know, I had a conversation with my boys today about respecting your grandson. How many grandparents do you have? They're like 1. I said, okay, so when I asked you to go to the house because she wanted to cook you guys breakfast, she calls you 81 years old. She said, send the boys up, I'm gonna cook breakfast because my wife was on a trip and she knows my wife is busy. My wife's the Energizer Buddy, she never stops, you know, except for like 3 hours, like from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., you know, she's through. But I said, how many grandparents do you have? And they said 1. I said, okay. I said, your mother's father is dead. Your mother's dad is dead. My father's dead. The only person living is my mother. And if she wants you to come up there, cook breakfast for you, you take your ass up there. You know what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? Because they're playing Fortnite. You're like, oh, I've got to stop playing my video games. And I'm like, you know, F them video games, you know? And so it was, but I hope I get through to them that they need to honor her, spend time with her. So back to his character, 8 years old, and he learned that his father was hung and burned. And that's just, imagine a child, present day, experiencing that. How traumatic it would be, you know what I mean? That's some major shit. That's some major stuff. And the thing is that if we go back in our lineage, we probably have to. I had an uncle who was hung in Kentucky, you know what I mean? We go back, and I don't want to go back. I really don't want to know. It's difficult. Now they got this DNA stuff, and my brother got the DNA test done, my younger brother, and it's like, you know, you're 60-something% sub-Saharan African, and then you're 30-something% Scottish. And I'm like, okay, well that explains why my butt isn't, it's why my nose is different, you know what I mean, or whatever. But I'm saying a lot of times we really don't want to go back because we don't want to know because we know about the atrocities. Now think about yourselves. Now think about you all going back. And to think about how it plays out. You know, do you have these type of things? You know what I'm saying? I'm sure some of you probably do. You know how the Irish is treated and things like that. But it's difficult. It's traumatic. And like Vanessa was saying, we're carrying this compounded resilience, and we carry that with us. And it's just understanding the differences. So when you guys sit and watch a play like this, your reactions are different than the African American reaction in the audience. That's just the reality of it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm rambling now. But next question.
Everybody started singing.
Mr. Mel.
Yeah, as a white person speaking to white people, and I think that's important to understand.
Wait, can we get a translator?
What's that? You know, we can look at this plan. I think it's all too easy for white people to look at something like this and say, now understand that Levy was probably born about 1900, right? Same shit's happening today. You think it is? If you think there are 8-year-old kids being traumatized today by racist killings, you're dreaming. It's happening everywhere all the time. If it's not happening here, it's happening in Yemen or Afghanistan or somewhere else. We need to understand that history, this kind of history, unfortunately lives. It's because of a class and race system that we live under. And we cannot, as white people, ever forget that that's still going on. We're not going to experience it. We're privileged folks. We'll never experience it. We can talk about Irish discrimination, we can call it all we want about that kind of discrimination. It's a white skin that still saves us, and we must not ever forget that.
Just to take it away from the racial for one moment.
We can't actually do that.
No,
Go on.
No, stop.
Let's hear you
I
try.
totally understand that, and what you're saying to me isn't necessary, because that's not what I was saying. I'm taking the discussion away for 1 second. And certainly not to say that these issues don't, no, not at all. But since you are a young acting group that wants to act, but your school's making it difficult for you to get together, you're putting it together yourselves, you don't have any acting teachers or guidance that are there, except we've experienced it or we've done it or we've been trained in it. I just want to tell you one thing about acting, and when you do a show that is extremely emotional, infectious to you, and when you're in the middle of working, as here you're coming to put this show together, there's this heavy, ugly, emotional baggage that goes with it. But any show you do, it doesn't have to be that kind of show only. There's other shows too for other people, like Mark said, you could be Irish and you have problems and other things. The thing is, one of my professors when I was in New York, professor, one of the teachers in New York studio, told us, you go to that play, you put on this costume that is your character. You become that character. You live that character on the stage. And you experience all of those emotional things, whatever it is. If it is a racial play that shows you how horrid this was, or if you do something else that's Irish or whatever. And the thing is, though, at the end of rehearsal and the end of the night after a play, you go over to your hanger, you zip off that person. Put it on a hanger, and you go home and you forget about it, or you try. Now, if you're black, you can't forget about the black experience. That's impossible. It's horrid. It's awful. And I'm not talking about forgetting about the experience. I'm talking about as a performer, how you go on to the next play, which is coming later. Maybe the next one's a come, the next thing you do. You've got to be able to go home and be unaffected by it at home, at least the part that you can. Nobody can walk away from anything. But as an actor, just a clean actor, forgetting about the vehicle. That's one of the things they'll teach you is you go, you perform this piece and take it off. Take it off and get it off of you so that you can do other things and you can live your life. Because if you live that same thing into your life and then you do another play and another one, after you've done 300 plays, you're people in Hollywood go mentally ill. So I'm just saying that's one of the things you got to learn as an acting school, acting classes.
Question?
Go ahead.
This is like,
Thank you.
this is like completely shifting. You there.
Third shift.
Use a shift.
Third shift, go ahead.
Just from an actor's standpoint, how long do you guys generally have to put on shows? I know sometimes you have a long period of time, you have a short period of time. Like how long do you
This
have?
was a 3.5, 4 week process. We asked the actors to try to come in and out-focus as much as possible.
Yeah.
And the way I directed the show along with Khalil is that I didn't really block the show hardly. I just left them freestyle at the beginning. I told them the spaces, and then as the set was built, came together, they should. So it was like I just poured them into a space, and they just found their way around. You know what I mean? And one of the key things to directing for me is that I think that a good chunk, I say 80% of it comes from your casting. Once you cast people and you have trust in them, you know what you're capable of doing. I mean, a lot of stuff that you see them doing I wasn't directed to do. But I don't, if it's too much, I'll reel them back in. I don't have to do too much reeling in. But they'll find it. So as the show's going, like tomorrow, if you come to the night show, you might see something different. You know what I mean? This is about living in this space. This is a world. This is a whole different world here. You guys ain't even here. You know what I mean? They're living within the world. There's a wall right there. You know what I'm saying? They're living in this world. So it's just for us to just reel back in or suggest little things here and there. Like I suggested to Wally, because we know the color can't read. I said, maybe if you turn, he gives you the paper upside down, he turns it around.
Guaranteed laugh.
You know, but it also telegraphs that, okay, this guy can't read. And then when you talk about spelling music, he's the only one out of the four that knows that he's right. Everybody in the audience knows that he's right. But he's 3-1, so he got to get the dollar back.
Did anybody in the audience get that?
Yeah. Now, when Malik, where did Malik go? Malik. So when Malik does this little thing to them when he leaves, that's him. He did that. He came up with that.
That's funny.
You know what I mean? There's different things that people do, that actors do. It's actor's choice. I just call it actor's choice. I like that choice. Now, if an actor does a choice that doesn't work, then we'll pull them aside and say something. I haven't had to do this hardly, you know, because it's just a growth process. You know what I'm saying? It's cool. I mean, it's a process, but it's a great ensemble of actors that are working really well together. And we appreciate you all coming out to the room. We'll take 2 more questions. Okay.
You with your hand up. So much of the play is about power. And I think this side of the stage, the power struggles are clearer. On this side of the stage, particularly, and this is why I wanted to bring to see a live show, because reading the play and watching the play are just 2 different experiences. And there's a constant power struggle among the band, and particularly with how they use language. And Wilson writes that you read, you go, why are they talking about this? And then you see it, and particularly in this play, it's about that battle. And I was hoping, you know, if you could answer how you're setting up, where your authority comes from in your character to present what it is what you're fighting for.
Well, my character, Cutler, is a more mature musician. I've been there. I've seen a lot of stuff that Levy hasn't experienced yet. And although sometimes I seem to be a little bit rough with Levy, I'm trying to save him from some of the frustration and the disappointment that I've experienced coming up in this music world, because I know how the establishment has treated us. But Levy is a newer generation, and you know, just like some of the I'm not saying anything about that, but some of the younger generation today, you know, it's like your parents tell you certain things because they've been there and they've done that. But we have to, young people have to find out on their own, and that's what Levy had to do. He had to, I can't walk that path for him. So there was a power struggle because he was young, and I wanted to, I was the head of the band, I'm the leader of the band, and he's coming in there and he's going to tell me what he's going to do, and he's going to try to change the whole genre of everything. And so that's why you have that constant struggle between me and him. But I'm the more mature individual, and he's just a young hothead, and he wants everything now, instant, like today, instant society. You know, everything's instant. Nobody wants to work for anything or work through anything. So.
I find that that's,
sorry.
I find that that's really a struggle in August Wilson is time and the change, and there's always a character that's pushing, that's saying, we're going this way, we're moving this way. If we sell the piano, we can get this. This is what's next. If we change the intro of the song, this is what's next. This is what they want. There's always, August always has a character who's pushing towards the future. And then there are the people who are like, but this is what is. And that struggle is really, I love that struggle with Levy because it's right to want to create the future.
The radio golf calls it back.
But your question with Chuck's power is in the basement. He's in charge.
Yeah.
And upstairs, he's second in charge. So he has to shift his power struggle, you know what I mean? But he actually fights for Levy with Mom. He tries to, he said, hey, dude, he knows how to write music, and he tried, so he's a really decent guy, you know what I mean? But your question talked about the power of the different rooms. And so there was a struggle with Ma and with Sturtevant. You know, Sturtevant would come down, but he would, yeah, and Mel would be the in-between person, you know? So this definitely was a power struggle then to really get to your question. And it was a different shift in both areas, you know what I mean? Even when they came downstairs, Mel and Sturtevant come downstairs, they sort of don't talk really powerful. They're really like, I'm in your space now. You know what I mean? I'm gonna respect it, but you're bringing money and, you know, you gotta get out, you know what I mean? And so they're not coming in there barking at it, you know what I mean? I don't know if that really answered your question, but I think that Chuck really represents the power on both sides. Yeah. Go ahead, Mary.
So my father is actually black, and he was really interested when I was starting to take this class. I've been sending my textbooks home for him to read it once we finish them, so he's been telling me all of the state parts and everything. And I guess just in relation to not Rainey, my question is, what were some of the most impactful scenes to you guys, like the first time you had read it?
For me, it was Toledo's line about the white man having to put a crown on, you know. Say that line, please.
As long as the colored man looked the white folks to put the crown on what he said, as long as he looked the colored folks to white folks for approval, he ain't never gonna know who he is or what he's about. He's just gonna be what white folks want him to be about.
I think my line is Mom's line when she's talking to Cutler, and she says, well, if you can make the money, then we don't care. You want to say that line, Mom?
If you're colored and you can make the money, then you are right with them. If not, you a dog in the alley. I always think about Colin Kaepernick when I say that line.
For me, it was a line in there where she says he's never had me up to his house except to sing for his friends. And that's exactly the role my producers and managers have played historically, and very much we still play. But that was a very, very powerful single scene.
But the point is they don't do that with their white performers. That's the thing. That makes me think of Get Out, that line there. You know what I mean? You know. Anyway. All right, last question. There you go. Okay, well, two more. Go ahead. You go.
I have a question. I just wanted to say thank you. For me personally, it was actually pretty entertaining just to be able to have a lot of answers to my own questions about myself. My family is Scottish-Irish. We have like a whole written genealogy of our family and where we came from and what happened to our family. And for me, like my family doesn't take that to heart as much as I think I do. And sometimes I feel crazy for taking that to heart more than my family seems to. And so I have so many questions about myself and my own family and where I came from. And so being able to not feel crazy for a second for like having that passion for my own family was wonderful, and you guys portrayed that very well with your own styles and your own words and ways that you explained what you guys have been through. And I wanted to just say thank you to you guys. Like I don't have any questions, but I guess that was just my appreciation for what you guys have been doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pay very close attention to the things that make you feel crazy like that. Because some people never get that in their life. Some people never get a thing that pulls and tugs on them and wants at them. So pay close attention to that, because it's not the feeling that's making you crazy, it's the lack of affirmation of it from outside the feeling. So trust that, because it will probably take you to a place that you couldn't engineer.
I just want to say, like, I've only read 3 of the books so far. I kind of jumped the gun and read this one before he came, so I was like, yes, like, I thought it was, I just thought it was so cool. Like, you read a play and you're like, wow, like, that's a play. And then you get to see it actually happening in front of your eyes and you're like, wow, like, this is so much more intense than you could have ever imagined it happening on a page in between like 2 covers. And so even though I knew, like, especially in the end, I knew it was the end, but I was still sitting there like I didn't want to move. I was like that's not really it. Like y'all are gonna like add something, like you have to, because like you don't want to just like accept that that's it. And I was like, wow. So I really appreciated like having the opportunity to see you all do this. It was like it was amazing to me.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Edinboro, thank you all.
So if you want to come up and do the whole cycle, that would also.
Oh, yeah,
That's
right.
not in your
Dr.
book.
Honey, listen, we can work it, do a collaborative grant with some state funding and make it happen.
Yeah, 'cause I can
That would be
I can do.
Don't forget how I learned.
Let's talk about it, yeah.
That's right.
Don't forget the one-man show. The one-man show, man.
You know, like, you know, give these young kids a hand for keeping art alive.
Absolutely.